At just 17 years old, she shocked the world. She defeated the greatest player on the planet, and in a single afternoon, Maria Sharapova proved she was more than just a champion. She was the future of the sport. And then, it vanished. A scandal, a ban, and a brilliant career that would never be the same again. This is how Maria Sharapova rose to the top, fell from grace, and tried a desperate comeback to save her career. But long before the fall, there was just a 7-year-old girl from Russia who left everything behind. For Maria Sharapova to break into the world of tennis, she had to leave her home, her mother, and her entire childhood. And with only a dream and a father who believed so deeply it bordered on obsession, she arrived in the United States. They had nothing, barely $700 to their name, and no connections. But the worst part? They didn't speak a word of English. The only thing they had was a vision and a prophecy that one day this little girl would become the best player in the world. Her father, Yuri, had to navigate strange streets just to find a cheap place to sleep. They bounced from budget motels to rundown apartments, while Yuri took low-paying jobs just to keep a roof over her head. But while other kids were going to the movies, making friends, and living normal lives, Maria Sharapova was training every single day, hitting hundreds, thousands of balls until her hands blistered. Obsessed, focused, relentless. This wasn't just natural talent. This was survival. This was a sacrifice in its purest form. And then it happened. By 2004, the tennis world was about to witness something utterly unbelievable. A 17-year-old girl facing the most dominant player in the world, Serena Williams. The experts believed this would be a quick, painless lesson for the teenager. But no one expected history. Sharapova didn't just survive or compete. She dominated. Maria Sharapova stepped into a Grand Slam final and systematically dismantled a legend with an ice-cold and aggressive demeanor. And after that final shot, everything changed. In just 24 hours, the 7-year-old girl who left her home in Siberia became a global superstar. And tennis had found its new queen. But this was just the beginning. Sharapova didn't stop there. Wimbledon was supposed to be a warning for the rest of the world. Grand Slams, big matches, and massive moments. She even conquered her weakness on clay, famously transforming from what she called a cow on ice into a 2-time French Open champion. She reached world number 1, completing the elusive career Grand Slam. But it wasn't just her powerful game that captivated the world. It was her presence, her intensity and aura that earned her the nickname, the Ice Queen. And this cold, ruthless demeanor would often see her struggling to make friends. But it didn't matter. She was building an empire, on and off the court. She was raking in millions with elite endorsements, and quickly achieved a level of fame that transcended the sport. By the late 2000s, she wasn't just a tennis player anymore. She was a mega untouchable brand. But in 2016, the flawless facade cracked, and everything changed. The tennis world expected a retirement announcement. Instead, in a shocking press conference that brought the sporting world to a standstill, Maria Sharapova admitted she had failed a drug test at the Australian Open. The substance was called meldonium, which is a heart medication she had been taking legally for a decade due to a family history. But on January 1st of that year, the rules had changed. It was recently banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency. An updated email had been sent, and she said she simply hadn't clicked the link. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Everyone who loved her turned their back, giving her heavy criticism and profound doubt. She was suspended from professional tennis, and in a single, catastrophic moment, the image of a champion was replaced with controversy. But when the public got their hands on the news, they almost destroyed her. While the tennis community turned its back on her, Rival players were literally criticizing her every move. They called for lifetime bans. Major sponsors and brands that built her empire vanished from the fallout. And everything she built over almost 2 decades suddenly felt fragile. The woman revered as the toughest and most unbreakable in the world was now being questioned. People weren't sure what to believe. Was she a true champion who made an administrative mistake? Or was there something way darker behind the success? Her hard work was being questioned, and while her life was one of meticulous management, she lost control of the narrative. And to prove the naysayers wrong, Sharapova had to do something to prove them wrong. After 15 months, she finally returned to the court in 2017. But this time, the crowd wasn't on her side. Yes, the expectations were massive, but the atmosphere was toxic. Everyone still saw her as a cheater. The question loomed large over the tennis world. Could she come back? Could she silence the locker room and win again? And can she prove everyone wrong without the medication she had relied on for 10 years? And to her absolute credit, she fought. She competed with the same ferocity she had at 17 and pushed her aging body to the absolute limit. There were brilliant glimpses of her old self, specifically that insane opening night victory in New York that won over some of the fans. But the reality was harsh. Something had fundamentally changed. The aura of absolute dominance was gone, and the fear she used to paralyze her opponents before they even stepped on the court vanished. It's actually sad to say, but the women's game moved on. Young stars like Naomi Osaka were unleashing a new level of baseline power. Relentless athletes like Simona Halep were refusing to be bullied off the court. And fresh prodigies like Bianca Andreescu were playing with the exact same swagger that Sharapova herself had patented over a decade ago. The world had just moved on without her, and she couldn't keep up. But while she was still a dangerous opponent, she was no longer untouchable. In 2020, she finally announced her retirement and used the same ruthlessness she had on the tennis court to move into the boardroom. She took her candy company, Sugarpova, and turned it into a global company. Finally, in 2025, all the doubts vanished when she was inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame. Maria Sharapova's story isn't just a story about winning tennis matches. It's a story about raw ambition, insane sacrifice, and enduring crushing pressure to rise to the top. She reached heights that most players can only dream of in their wildest fantasies. She fell, much harder and more publicly than most ever will. And still, broken shoulder and battered reputation, she fought with everything she had to come back. But the ultimate question remains, when the dust settles and we look back at her incredible, turbulent career, what will define Maria Sharapova? The unparalleled champion who conquered the world, or the sudden controversy that changed everything? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.